Today, I'd love to share with you my recipe for fluffy buckwheat pancakes or waffles. These pancakes are seriously soft and tender. They pick up some nuttiness and earthiness from the buckwheat too. With warm maple syrup and a heap of fresh blueberries on top, this is breakfast perfected. What's extra great is this recipe takes advantage of sourdough discard that you may have lying around. If you want to learn more about how to make a sourdough starter from scratch, or if you want to learn more about my daily feed schedule, please see these tutorials I have up here on YouTube. I also have a basic how to make sourdough bread tutorial here as well, and you can of course visit me on Instagram at Foolproof Baking, where all of my sourdough bakes and experiments are posted weekly. I usually bake breads daily, and so I'm feeding my starter 2 to 3 times per day, and I'm collecting the excess discarded sourdough in a bowl, and I store this in my freezer. I feed very small amounts of starter at a time, so I don't actually have a lot of discard, but this bowl is what I've collected over the last couple weeks. When you want to use some for a bake, just take the bowl from the freezer and thaw overnight in the refrigerator, or you can even put it on the counter and it'll be ready to go first thing in the morning. I just want to add a quick note. Whatever you're using your discard in will take on some of the flavor of this sourdough culture, so just double check that it smells all right before you choose to use it. All right, let's get to it. First things first, place a heavy non-stick skillet on your stovetop and set to medium heat. We'll want to warm this thing up nicely while preparing the batter. And likewise, if you're making waffles, now is a good time to warm up your waffle maker. We're going to start with the wet ingredients. In a medium-sized bowl, combine the milk. Whole milk is what I'm using here, but you can use skim milk or a milk substitute like coconut milk. Next, right into the milk, we're going to add 2 eggs and give it a brief whisk to combine. After that's good to go, you can add in the melted and salted butter. I like to whisk while adding the butter, but basically just give it a good whisk to combine the ingredients. Here we've got our sourdough discard. I thawed the discard overnight in the refrigerator, and then I let it come to room temperature by sitting it out on the counter for the last half hour or so. We're going to scoop this out and get it into the bowl with the milk and the eggs, and whisk well to combine. It may take a bit of elbow grease at first, but it will become more of an even consistency after a minute or so of mixing. Once you're done, we'll set that aside and grab a small bowl to mix the dry ingredients. Here I've got the mix of all-purpose flour and buckwheat flour. You'll need some granulated sugar as well. And the last of the dry ingredients are baking powder, baking soda, and salt. Get everything together and whisk to combine. Okay, right on top of the wet ingredients, go ahead and add the dry flour mix. We do not want to overmix this batter or the pancakes will actually come out pretty dense. I like to use a spatula to fold the flour mix in, turning the wet ingredients over the flour until everything is pretty well incorporated. All right, this is all looking good. Let's start frying these up. Now over to our hot skillet. I add a bit of canola oil and then use a paper towel to wipe the oil evenly over the surface. Careful if you do this not to burn yourself. A spray oil works great here too. Then measure out 1/3 cup of pancake batter per pancake. I can fit 2 at a time easily. I let these cook about 3 minutes on this first side, and you'll note the bubbles coming up to the surface. The edges of the pancake will dry up a bit too. Then go ahead and flip over and cook 2 minutes on the other side. As I take the pancakes off the skillet, I like to top each one with a pat of butter and a drizzle of maple syrup. This flavors each layer. You don't want the bottom pancakes to be dry. Stacking the pancakes like this also keeps them warm as you prepare the rest. And my favorite topping is blueberries. You can also use this recipe to make waffles. 1 cup of batter into your standard waffle maker is the perfect amount. Again, don't forget the butter, syrup, and berries. Thanks so much for watching. I hope your family enjoys these as much as mine does. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to check out my other tutorials here on YouTube and subscribe. And if you want to further help support my channel, visit the link in the description below to access print-friendly supplemental PDFs and method guides to making your own sourdough starter, making your own sourdough breads, and more sourdough discard recipes.